Good day, Todd Stanley here. I got a very exciting show today. I do a lot of boots on the ground stuff, and that's what I'm really known for. But I'm also a bit of a geek. I started doing DNA, and I have this whole court case going on, so we're going to talk about that in great detail today. We're going to talk about Sasquatch DNA and how significant the DNA that I was able to gather and what I was in the news for like 5 years ago is. And we're going to talk about what's going on with the court cases and legal stuff with Sasquatch and how we're going to prove the species exists and kick some ass and all the options that we have right now. So let's get into it. Let's do this. Let's talk about this. I've taken out dozens of wildlife officers, PhDs, and had them live interact with Sasquatch on multiple occasions. Trained in the art of tracking by a Cree Nation's elder and a military sniper, my skill sets include camouflage techniques using the terrain and its features to mask ground movement, counter surveillance, survival, evasion, and escape techniques. So thanks for tuning in so much, everybody. I'm going to be reading off my computer because this is a DNA presentation I did, oh my God, like so many years ago. And so I presented this in front of the media. I was really excited about the DNA results that I got. And I want to take you through step by step, because remember, I'm not a geneticist. I'm a University of Alberta biology student. And, I was working with and being mentored by geneticists, by John Bitternagle, PhD, and other scientists that were helping me out because in the field, remember, I've led multiple PhDs. At the time that I wrote this, I'd led 4 PhDs in the field and immensely impressed them. You know, Jeff Meldrum and John Bitternagle, 2 that went public. There was another primatologist, another PhD that I was just impressing the hell out of these people, and they were really helping me out a lot, getting me into, the whole science end of it so we could prove the existence of this species scientifically, which is ultimately, a goal. I talk a lot about the art of this discovery, but the science is very, very important to me. So I talked about how it's been, at that time, it's been 6 years. I've been banging on the doors of university DNA labs all over North America, trying to get them to test my physical samples of DNA and publicly disclose them. A university or 2, or 3 actually, tested my genetic samples, and when it came back as something they couldn't explain, they were not at all prepared to admit that there's a North American primate species, and they refused to go public. And the reason for that is, at the time, I guess people thought there was more probability that it was some kind of weird genetic genius and I was cooking up DNA in a crock pot or something, which is totally ridiculous and asinine. And especially when I understood the results as Paleo DNA, this incredible company that's very worldwide respected, very highly touted. They've done stuff from Egypt and they've done mummy testing, and they're very popular, very a well-respected university. They agreed to do the test for me, and I'll go through kind of all the steps that were involved in it. First of all, just in case you don't know, it's important. So in the test, they did 3 human and 3 chimpanzee comparisons based on the sample that I gave them. And as you should know, chimpanzees are about 1% off from human beings, which is extremely important to note, extremely important. And I used the articles. There's a Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History article called Human Evolutionary Evidence. You should look it up. It's an excellent article. I looked up Wiki under Human Evolutionary Genetics and the comparisons for primates, which was a really good article. And an article from Scientific America from August 2014 that's entitled Tiny Genetic Differences Between Humans and Other Primates. So you can look those up. They're still online. And I also was tutored by a PhD who wishes to remain anonymous, going through the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology from Princeton University. Those were the stepping stones I used to deduce this tremendous amount of information, and I'll just go through a few really important points on it. Again, the first thing to note is, of course, remember, chimpanzees 1% out, and in case you don't know, so the genetics, like, it'd be orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and then human beings. So that's the line, right? And we're not going to really, and I'm saying orangutans are like 5% out, some approximately. Gorillas are 2% out, so 98%, 95%, and then you get the chimpanzees that are 99% human with the bonobos, and human beings that are 100% Homo sapien, which is really important. So, and I like this quote. I've been studying, genetics and the history of evolution and whatnot, and I wanted to say this real quick. So Charles Darwin, in 1871 surmised that humans were evolutionarily closer to the African apes than any other species alive. And recent sequencing of gorilla, chimpanzee, and the bonobo genes confirms that supposition. So in 1871, Carl Darwin, genius, surmised that they would be the closest living relatives to us, and the DNA that we've got in the past decades substantiated his claims, with, of course, us finding out that of those primates, 99% chimpanzees were the most. And again, orangutans are more like 4% off. So I am going to make a prediction based on what I know and what I've seen, and even before the DNA. Well, actually, no, I cheated. I got the DNA first. I'm going to surmise that we, or all Homo sapiens species, Neanderthals, Homo florenziensis, are going to have more in common with the Sasquatch because we all migrated out of Africa together, up into Europe and across the Bering Straits, the First Nations and Native Americans were, and that's where the Sasquatch ended up. So I'm going to make the prediction that the Sasquatch are going to have more DNA similarities with us than with the African primates. That's why I brought up the Charles Darwin thing, because I thought that was just totally brilliant and amazing. So here are the big results that paleo DNA had, and you have to understand too, what a geneticist will do is they always want to throw up, oh, it's a tainted result anytime something weird pops up. What they do with the genetic testing is, so they took the hair that I gave them, that I actually got on an episode of Survivorman. We pulled a hair off of a spot where apples have been taken by a Sasquatch, where Survivorman filmed the top of the head of a Sasquatch. I had these, Survivorman himself called my DNA traps ingenious. I was using indigenous plants that, like, it's called like a beggar's lice is what we call it in the field. It's a plant that like sticks to you, and I glued them to a tree really, like, so you couldn't see the glue. When the Sasquatch came along and rubbed up against it, pieces of hair got stuck on it, and the hair that I gave was really weird. It was really thick and looked really strange. The geneticist said that the hair looked more like an eyelash, but it was a big, huge, thick eyelash. It's just because Sasquatch, they have hair, not fur, and since they have no layer of fur, it's all hair just like us, their hairs have to be significantly thicker. And there were other things that I tested under a microscope that confirmed, this was a really important test to me. And I used Jeff Meldrum's, his methods of deducing Sasquatch hair, and this hair fell into all those parameters. So I sent it off and paid for it out of my own pocket, however many thousands of dollars it was. And so the test sample came back, the first 3 tests. Again, remember, it's a dropper. He's got the test in his little thing, and he takes that, there's 6 drops, and he puts them in 6 different pieces, seals them up, and sends them off. So if one is tainted, they're all tainted. If one is good, they're all good. And funny, you'll go, okay, so it tested on the Homo sapien 100%. I'm going to wear that test like a badge of honor in a minute, and I'll tell you why. Because you should know, if we had a Neanderthal kicking around, or I talked about the recent discovery of the hobbit primate, Homo florenziensis. Homo florenziensis is a little tiny, like hobbit-like primate, and there's quite a few differences that you could note. Just exterior differences, phenotype differences that you could note in Homo florenziensis from human beings. And even though they're as different from us as the Sasquatch are, Homo florenziensis would test 100% Homo sapiens. So it's important to note that. And anyways, so those came back, and I'm like, okay, not great, doesn't do anything. So we're going to go through this step by step, because these are very important things. I did a ton of research on this. The chimp comparison came back under the 12S DNA as 99%, which is what a human being should do. Once again, though, I'm going to wear this like a badge of honor, substantiating that the test is untainted and perfect. So I'm telling you this because I got on the phone with many geneticists after, and I was very excited about these results, because 4 of them show that they're untainted, and 4 of them just prove that this you can't have a tainted sample and then have 4 that are perfect. Because the next 2 results is where your mind starts getting blown. I guess I should also mention for the record too that there are, if you look through the DNA, there are DNA sequences for chimpanzees that will test as much as 5% out. But these tests they use, these specific mitochondria and universal DNA tests, all of them must test 1% out. That's why they use these as a universal test, because they have to be 1% out. So every other test should be 1%, 1%, 1%. And that didn't happen. So what happened was, the second test that came back which is the 16S sequence that is considered very significant test by the late microbiologist and biophysicist Dr. Carl Woese, due to the slow rates of evolution in this region. So it's a very, very significant test. That's why they do the 16S sequence, came back 95%. And this is where the geneticists that I'm talking to on the phone almost hang up on me. And they go, that is impossible. Nothing that's testing Homo sapien can test 5% out on the 16S sequence. It can't do it. It's not possible. No primate could do that. Not a orangutan, not a gorilla. No primate that exists in the world can test Homo sapien and 1% out on chimpanzee and then 5% out on the 16S. It's impossible. But they're still talking to me. They're still trying to convince me of, how crazy this is and how it is. And then, of course, they want to know about the final test, the third test. And it's the human HV1 mitochondrial sequence. This is where they hang up the phone. It was an 85% match. 15% out. This is where they just go click. Totally, completely impossible. The 5% was bad enough. 15% out is completely and utterly, totally impossible for any primate species of any kind. Gibbons, go right into them. Everything, all the way down the line. The macaque, all of them, none of them can test 15% out. So they hang up the phone on me. And again, now I'm wearing those first 4 tests like a badge of honor. How is this possible? How can a primate species do this? I'm going to tell you what my theory is when you think about what a Sasquatch is. So if you took that badass, tough, awesome, amazing Survivorman, and he's tough as nails, and if I put him naked in the wilderness and told him he could use no technology and no tools and threw him out in the middle of nowhere in the harshest, nastiest environment, he would not survive. I don't know how well he could do, but if you told him no technology, I think he'd be dead in a month or 2. I love the guy, but no technology, no survival skills, just try to survive raw like a bear or like a wolf does, and the best of the best, like Survivorman, is going to die fast. If you take a Sasquatch and you throw him naked and put him out in the harshest, nasty environment, and you told him he can't use tools, which he wouldn't want to use anyways, you can come back in 10 years and he's going to be fat and thriving. And what that tells me is that they're a more advanced wilderness primate. Does that make sense? They can survive better. They have the body composition, the hair, the power, the strength, all the acuities and the intelligence to survive much better than we are. A more advanced hominid. So now this is what's so significant about these tests, is what it's showing is what I talked about earlier. It goes chimpanzee, human being, Sasquatch. They're more. That's why they're testing. If this is a human being and this is Sasquatch, of course they're testing 100% because they're beyond us. And so when you test them against the chimpanzees, it's showing 5% out and even more because they're such an advanced, incredible, amazing primate species, highly specialized to survive in winter conditions like really no primate species can. Human beings can survive there, but we use technology. You throw us naked out there, we're dead meat. And gorillas and chimpanzees survive in tropical climates or subtropical climates at best. They would never be able to survive in the continents of North America, and the Sasquatch do that very, very well. So I'm also shocked and stunned by the 85%, shocked and stunned by the 95%, because there's no reason for it, but geneticists won't talk to me. And the whole potential for somebody like myself to hoax, so I get some chimpanzee DNA and I mix it with human DNA and it ends up in the middle here somewhere. That can be faked and hoaxed. What can't be faked and hoaxed is DNA over here, because what am I going to mix it with? I'm going to take unknown primate DNA and mix it with human? It doesn't make any sense, right? So it's testing impossible. It is impossible if you think Sasquatch isn't real for these DNA results to come back. And you must understand how significant that is. Out of the 6 tests, 33% of the tests, 1/3 of the tests, show a completely impossible result. And the reason for that is because it's Sasquatch. This test taught me so much. I was so happy and proud and excited. I went public with this. Geneticists wouldn't show up. Geneticists wouldn't talk to me. I've been trying to get them, even with the support of John Bitternagel and Jeff Meldrum and my other PhD colleagues. Nobody's testing my DNA. Even like, I'll name some names. Todd was going to test it, get involved. I wanted a full nuclear genome analysis, which is very expensive, very complicated. There's very few places that could do it. Todd Dissetel could have done it. And he got on, like Jeff Meldrum and John Bitternagel recommended me. They said, please test his DNA. And Todd made some talk to somebody and said, said some bad stuff about me. which damages the research. Somebody just lied and said some crap, probably, one of the ridiculous things that people say. And so he refused to do my DNA testing. And he was in a show, $1 Million Bigfoot or whatever, where he was alleging to test it. And I thought he was going to have some balls, some intestinal fortitude. And he didn't. And he chickened out. And there are dozens of other geneticists that have all chickened out, been little whiny chumps. And because this would really help us, this full genome. And I know there's been other genetic testing done, and it seems to have been very legit. I've been convinced by a medical doctor who got his master's in genetics that the other tests that have been done, a couple of them have been they're in Zoobank, they're legit and real. So, I just know what I have and what I've done, and I'd love to get more involved in that but I'm not a geneticist, and this was a lot of hard work, a lot of studying. I do love the science of this, but it's really not my field. So anyway, isn't that amazing? I just think that's so exciting that, for my life's work to have shown people Sasquatch, take people out to see Sasquatch, and then to have gathered DNA that is so significant, and it was hard work. It was paid for. It was fought. We bled for it. A Survivorman was there when we gathered the DNA, and then he filmed the top of the head of a Sasquatch. I just think all these things add up, and it's so exciting to me because we've worked so hard. So many of us have worked so hard and bled for this, and new people coming out this year. We're going to gather new DNA evidence, and if you want to come on expedition, you want to get involved, you want to help with the cooperation, we're really doing this, people. Get excited. It's such a thrill for me to be on a threshold like this because I'm better than I was 4 years ago, 2 years ago, last year. I'm growing and evolving, and the cooperation grows, and all these incredible, brilliant minds are jumping on board. And I'm so excited about making this discovery move forward. So make a donation, go to my website, discoveringbigfoot.org, or I'm on Patreon. And if there's just something you can do to help out, if you know somebody, if you've seen a Sasquatch, anything you can do to help out, we're really making this happen. I know people are passionate about the gorillas and saving the gorillas and chimpanzees, and that's wonderful and that's great. Save the dolphins, do that stuff. But there's a lot of people that are specifically passionate about this discovery, about Bigfoot, and there's a lot of them. And if we can get on board, and if we can cooperate together as a team, it matters. It matters so much. So anyways, we'll get into the other section of this, which I said I would talk about today, and that's the court cases and where it's going and what's happening with that right now. And of course, this DNA and other DNA, the Zoobank DNA that I've been given, it's a big fat book. All that comes into the court case, but where are we going to go? How are we going to do it? We'll talk about that next. The court case, right? People had a good go at me. The media was good and responsive initially, and then after it got thrown out, allegedly, as they called it, they wouldn't let it go into trial. And there's a lot more going on than that. There was just a lot of stuff happening. In the end, I was going to appeal it because the judge was really. We had a good judge to start with that I really wanted to work with, and we got kicked over to another courtroom, and I could just see the judges that we had. He just rolled his eyes. He was like, "Bigfoot, really?" And he was mad that the discussion of Sasquatch, this paranormal topic, was in his courtroom. I could just see in his eyes that he just was very unimpressed. He was ridiculously hard on my lawyer, and he just let the lawyers for Fish and Wildlife just chatter on about all their bogusness. And but anyways, it sucks that didn't get to go through. He just and I think the judge was just he was using excuses. I love these excuses, right? Shouldn't this be for politicians to decide? Yeah, a politician should be making this decision. The truth is, Fish and Wildlife are not doing their job. People see Sasquatch and they do nothing. So they're derelict in their duty, and I was going to prove the species was real. But so what's happening now is out of British Columbia. I'm not going to go back to British Columbia most likely, even though I had such great testimony and evidence, and police officers and fishery officers and PhDs that were all going to come testify. It was amazing. But I got to let BC go for now. The places to go now are, I got this incredible, amazing stuff going on in Alberta. Oh my God, just mind blown, where I can really make it happen there. And then I've got Claudia Ackley in California, who's just a juggernaut. She's just fearless, this titan of a little lady that just will not quit. She fights for this. She's doing all these amazing things. And I really want to go to California. And then I had this huge, amazing, all this stuff fall into place with Washington State. Washington State is such a hot spot for Sasquatch. So I'm trying to kind of make a decision. And of course, finances and money always seem to be the number one thing. If you don't have the right tools, you can't take your alternator out of your truck. And I have to make sure it's really ultimately about the tools to make it work. And so I have to make a decision on where to go and what to do with that. So, but I have those three different potentials. And if you want to go proceed with the court case, I would love to help you. If you're in Utah, if you're in New Jersey, if you're in Florida, and you want to help pursue this and push it forward, and you're passionate about it, and you really care, and you have a research site, the main thing that we need is when we win, because if this goes to trial, we're going to smoke them. They don't have a prayer. DNA, eyewitness testimony. I mean, this is a slam dunk. Slam dunk, as long as it gets to trial. That's the trick. Get the right judge, get the right lawyer to put into trial. But the last thing that we need to do that is an absolute essential is we have to be able to take Fish and Wildlife out in Florida or in Utah or in Montana and show them Sasquatch after. So you have to be able to get repeatable, successful results with Sasquatch. And I can definitely do that in Alberta and British Columbia. Washington, what do I say? I was in Washington for a week and a Sasquatch came within 40 yards of me, and we substantiated that, and I saw tons of evidence, and that was a week out there with these incredible, amazing people. So I was really impressed with that. And then California, I got footage of a Sasquatch in California. Nice footage. Not the best footage I ever had, but went down there and Claudia Ackley's filmed them. I can't believe she got footage of a Sasquatch where she did, but I think that video evidence she has is profound and real. So that's the decisions we're going through right now. We're making that process. I got a lot going on with the research site and expeditioners coming out, all the things happening right now. But we're just going to keep moving forward. So here's a little segment from CTV News, a live interview I did pertaining to the court case that was coming up. Enjoy that. Thank you very much for listening. And I'll see you on Wednesday for the live video or next week for our new Saturday video. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good one.
Happening this morning, a BC man is taking the provincial government to court for damaging his credibility by not recognizing the existence of Sasquatch. For more than a decade, Todd Standing has hunted the legendary creature, commonly referred to as Bigfoot, and he believes he has enough evidence to back up his claims. Todd Standing joins us now from Vancouver. Good morning, Todd. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Todd, I went onto your YouTube page, and you say you've got enough evidence to convince the court beyond the shadow of a doubt of the existence of Sasquatch. What exactly are you going to present today?
Well, what they're trying to do right now is the people representing Fish and Wildlife are trying to get the case thrown out. They don't want this to go to court, and they shouldn't, because I'm going to overwhelm them with evidence. I mean, what evidence don't I have? I have police officers, fishery officers, engineers, nurses, doctors that have eyewitnessed it. I've taken a PhD out into the field in my documentary Discovering Bigfoot and showed him a Sasquatch. That's what I do, is I take people out as a tracker, I show them that Sasquatch exists. We have every piece of evidence that, I mean, if this was a murder trial, I would just annihilate it. So way beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence is very clear. And for the past decade, I've been trying to get Fish and Wildlife to come out with me, showing them my video evidence, showing them what I can do and how the species survives. And they've been denying it for 10 years. And now I'm going to take them to court and prove that Sasquatch exists beyond a reasonable doubt. And at that point, they'll have to come out with me and do an ecological survey and recognize the species.
Todd, talk to me. How did you get involved in the search for Bigfoot? Why do you keep doing it?
Well, I got involved to disprove the existence of this species, and obviously I was completely wrong. I started working with the First Nations people, who obviously know this species exists, and they've been taught how to deal and interact with this species, the way Fish and Wildlife should be teaching people. And, you know, working with trackers, some of the best trackers, the First Nations people in North America, incredible. And the fact that, why do I go for it? It's a miracle. It's the discovery of the millennium. When this, to understand a primate species has been in North America this whole time, and we haven't been able to discover them, the reason for that is because they're trackers, because they're intelligent, because they're incredible species. So what inspires me to move forward? The miracle that this species exists blows my mind. And the fact that CTV News and all the different news networks report on Sasquatch sightings from reputable people like police officers and fishery officers, and Fish and Wildlife never investigates it. I don't know how they can continue to do this. People that are very reputable are seeing this species. Professors, PhDs, Survivorman have all investigated it and found that this is a very relevant topic, and that this species exists, and we need to get this discovery process moving forward.
Well, Todd, we want to thank you for sharing your story with us this morning. We will be following this case very, very closely, and good luck to you, sir.
Thanks for having me. Take care.